When historians describe the year 1865 in Amsterdam, they usually focus on what happened above ground. The grand reconstruction projects, the new boulevards being carved through medieval districts, the modernization of a city emerging into the industrial age. But the real story, the one that barely appeared in newspapers, the one that even today sits buried in municipal footnotes, began below the surface. It started with what officials called drainage improvements. Engineers were instructed to assess the old waterways, upgrade the canal systems, and prepare Amsterdam's infrastructure for rapid urban expansion. The goal was practical: modernize the water management, inspect the foundations, and ensure the city could support a growing population. But the moment workers began examining the existing canal network, something unexpected happened. They broke through layers that hadn't been disturbed in living memory. Beneath the familiar brick-lined channels, deeper than any known construction should reach, the crews found waterways that didn't match the city's documented history. Their scale was massive, their engineering was sophisticated, and the construction methods didn't resemble anything in the architectural records of mid-19th century Holland. It didn't even resemble the canal building techniques Amsterdam was famous for. This wasn't mentioned in the public reports about urban improvement. It didn't make it into the newspapers celebrating Amsterdam's progressive modernization. But in the internal notes of that year, a quiet phrase appears over and over again. Deeper channels discovered, unexpected infrastructure. Origins require investigation. The official story would later simplify all of this into earlier construction phases, forgotten maintenance tunnels, or simply misidentified storm drains. Nothing unusual, nothing worth extended discussion. But the engineering surveys from the time, the ones filed in dim municipal offices while Amsterdam transformed itself at record pace, show something different. They show workers standing beside waterways cut with precision, far beyond what 19th century tools should allow. Channels fitted with stone so carefully that even in the poor documentation of 1865 record-keeping, the craftsmanship is undeniable. Tunnel systems and underground passages that don't resemble any known Dutch construction, but something older, more systematic, more deliberately planned. And the deeper they examined, the more the layers stopped looking like urban development as we know it, and more like infrastructure that had been sealed, buried, and intentionally forgotten. At first, the municipal teams tried to categorize everything in the simplest way possible. Old canal branches, forgotten utility channels, natural water flow patterns common to low-lying Dutch geography. But as documentation accumulated and more structures were uncovered, the inconsistencies multiplied. Why were some of the underground waterways constructed with capacity far exceeding anything the surface city required? Why were certain stone patterns arranged in modular formations as if mass-produced rather than hand-laid by local craftsmen? Why did some channels extend into darkness far beyond the footprint of any documented neighborhood? And the question that troubled even the most experienced hydraulic engineers: why were these underground systems so vast? Amsterdam in 1865 was certainly a major port city, yet the infrastructure beneath parts of the old districts appeared built for water management on a scale far larger than anything the city had ever officially recorded. Municipal teams quietly admitted among themselves that the extent and sophistication didn't align with any known development phase in Amsterdam's documented timeline. And although none of them were using terms like buried civilization, they were acknowledging something just as unsettling. Someone had built extensively beneath this ground before, not simple drainage, not basic water channels, an entire subterranean network designed for purposes that no longer existed in any city records. As the investigation deepened, so did the silence. Reports became shorter, descriptions became vague. Photographs stopped capturing the full scope of the discoveries. And then the excavation zones were partially filled again in late 1865, sealed where needed for new construction. And much of what was exposed was returned to darkness. Only fragments remain. engineering notes, a handful of technical drawings, and the quiet testimonies of municipal workers who saw the channels before some sections were permanently blocked. But even from what survives, a pattern becomes visible. Waterways too extensive for any documented Amsterdam development, stone cutting too precise for the accepted technological capabilities, construction methods that look inherited rather than improvised by Dutch engineers. When the municipal crews moved past the first recognizable layers beneath Amsterdam's canal system, expectations were straightforward. They believed they would find earlier Dutch construction, perhaps some forgotten maintenance channels, scattered remnants from previous urban planning phases. Nothing extraordinary, nothing that challenged established timelines. But within weeks, that assumption collapsed because instead of a neat sequence of building periods, the teams uncovered waterway systems that didn't behave the way infrastructure of a normal city is supposed to behave. The first anomaly was coordination. Each level, the documented canals, the unknown channels, and whatever lay beneath seemed to follow the same hydraulic logic, the same water flow patterns, the same geometric relationships, the same engineering principles. Different eras shouldn't demonstrate that level of consistency. Different builders, different decades, different municipal authorities don't typically maintain perfect alignment with water management systems that came generations before. Yet beneath Amsterdam, they did. Underground channels from one era connected directly to passages buried meters below them. Stone foundations maintained the same structural integrity even when separated by what appeared to be decades of sediment accumulation. It was as if every group that ever built water infrastructure on this ground was following an original hydraulic plan, one that no longer existed in any municipal archive. As the workers examined deeper sections, the construction became stranger. Beneath the expected Dutch brickwork and clay, they began encountering stonework that looked nothing like contemporary Amsterdam engineering. Much larger blocks, much more precise joints, patterns that seemed too mathematically exact for anything in the city's documented construction timeline. Some tunnel systems appeared almost over-engineered. Curved passages with flawless hydraulic geometry, crafted with precision that didn't match the basic tools available to Dutch canal builders. The stone itself raised questions when samples were later analysed. Cutting techniques that resembled industrial manufacturing more than hand-formed masonry, typical of Holland's waterway tradition. And then came the discovery that puzzled even the most conservative members of the Municipal Engineering Survey. Water damage patterns that made no sense. Stone surfaces eroded in ways that suggested exposure to water volumes far greater than Amsterdam's canals had ever carried. Lower passages with flood marks indicating submersion levels that exceeded any recorded water event in the city's known history. Yet there was no documentation of Amsterdam experiencing flooding at these depths during recent centuries. No maps showing underground water systems beneath these specific locations capable of such flow rates. Nothing that explained why large sections of the deepest waterway infrastructure showed signs of having been completely overwhelmed by water volumes that official records claimed never existed. Municipal photographs taken in 1865 show this clearly. Workers standing beside channel openings so massive that the men appear miniature beside them. Stonework laid so precisely that even today, hydraulic engineers study the archival images, trying to understand the construction methods. The 1865 Amsterdam excavation wasn't just a municipal improvement project. It was a glimpse, a brief accidental glimpse into a version of the city's past that raises more questions than answers. Because if Amsterdam's famous canals rest on top of an entire buried waterway system built by engineers we no longer acknowledge, then the real question is not what was discovered in 1865. It's what else lies beneath European port cities. What other modernization projects, what other convenient infrastructure upgrades cleared the surface just long enough for someone to seal what was below? And why does a city need to forget an entire hydraulic network that demonstrates engineering capabilities beyond what the historical timeline allows? The answer might be simpler and more disturbing than any elaborate theory, because acknowledging them would require rewriting everything we think we know about who built Europe's water management systems and when and what came before. The channels are still there, sealed beneath Amsterdam's streets, waiting beneath the familiar canals that millions of tourists photograph every year. They're telling us something we've forgotten how to hear. Maybe it's time we started listening. Thanks for watching, and if you found this investigation compelling, there are a lot more cities with stories like this. Maybe I'll see you in the next one.